We are live. And Chris Stothers, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
No problem. Right, what were you saying then? Everyone's got this story.
I was just saying everybody has their story, and I suppose the reason I'm here now is to share my story with you. But everybody has their individual story, and it's when you start hearing, as we were chatting before, you start hearing about these individuals, and you think, wow, that's mind blowing.
Yeah,
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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's one of the things I've realised doing the podcast. Like, to your point, everyone's got something about them. And
yeah,
the worst thing is, yeah, there are people who literally think they are nothing compared to anyone else. Think, who am I? Who am I? Like, what value do I bring to anyone? It's like only you have lived your life. Only you have been through the experiences you've been through, and that means your specific knowledge and perceptions of things at this time, no one else has got. So you can offer insights and ideas and opinions and advice on things that no one, in a particular way, no one else could do. Which is, it's that the value of, I'm going to say, diversity, diverse thinking,
yeah,
value of
absolutely.
diverse thinking.
Yeah,
Um. Okay. Right. Icebreaker. As I warned you, we've gone about a gazillion questions, approximately a gazillion questions in your few, and we're going to try and get through them all in 20 minutes. If we don't get through them all in 20 minutes, we will cover the remainder at the end of the full podcast.
yeah, okay,
And there'll probably be more added in as well, because while the live stream is going to the platinum subscribers, they can also add questions in as we're talking.
okay.
We shall cover at the end. Now, if you are listening to this after the fact and you haven't had a live stream because you're not a platinum subscriber, next time become a platinum subscriber. But this icebreaker will finish. It'll last about 20 minutes and it will roll. If you listen to it on your podcast app, it will roll straight into the full podcast with Chris. So enjoy, and at the end, stay tuned for the next episode. That's a rap song, isn't it?
It is,
Isn't it?
lyrical master.
Okay. Question number one from the platinum subscribers. God, I warned you. With these questions. When were you most let down during your police service?
Most let down. I would just like to start by saying I loved my time within policing. I am very proud of what I've been involved in and the career I've had. But when was I most let down? At the latter end of my career, when I started to spiral with PTSD and my mental health has started to slip, and I sought help. And it took a lot for me to reach out and seek that help, which I did. And I was told it would be 10 months before I could see a mental health specialist.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When was this?
So I was involved, we'll probably get to it, but I was involved in an incident at the latter end of 2022. So I think about August 22, I'd asked for help. I just clearly, I went to my sergeant, who's a close personal friend, and just told him I was having difficulty sleeping because I didn't want to admit that I was struggling. And he made a referral to occupational health for me. They sent a triage email to me. I completed that, and I was told that it would be 10 months before I could see a mental health specialist.
But had you played down the symptoms on that form?
No, not real. No, I hadn't. Did I say at that point, was I considering suicide? No. Well, I did. I said I wasn't considering suicide, and I wasn't. A number of months later, was I? Yes, I was. But it was silly. I say silly questions. There were questions like, "Have you hurt your dog? Have you considered hurting your dog? Have you hurt your children?" So a lot of the questions were, and I understand this to get that bigger picture of what's going on, but to me it wasn't fit for purpose. I needed help then, and I didn't get it. So that's probably the only time I felt let down by the police service.
Have you ever felt hate towards someone during your service?
No, no. I think the simple answer to that is no. Hate.
Strong word.
It is. Hate's a very strong word.
It's a strong feeling.
When I look back reflectively, at a time, was I angry and cross at the way a certain group of the society were acting towards the police? Absolutely. I think hate's too strong a word because I'm quite a reflective person. I'm quite a rational thinking person. So I would always try and take that back and put myself in. An example I'm sort of going to is in 2005 during the White Rock riots. Belfast was like a battlefield, to be honest. The shops around North Belfast were told they couldn't serve police. And I remember the first time going into a shop, being unaware of this, going into a shop and trying to get something for my lunch. And the girl working in the shop said, "We can't serve you. We're not allowed to serve police." And at the time I was cross, I was angry, but I walked away. I didn't want to put her in a position. So I walked away and thought, what sort of society are we living in where the shop can't serve a police officer? That probably doesn't answer the question totally, but hate, no. I don't think I've ever hated one person whilst I've been serving. I don't think.
You'd hate if you know that you're out. Some people are going to wind you right up. In your experience, what practical steps can police services take to better support officers struggling with trauma or mental health challenges? I bet you got a list. Get that list out.
That's $1 million question, isn't it? I think awareness is a big thing. In the latter end of my career, I worked in a male only environment in the CT world. To admit that you weren't feeling well or that you were struggling uh, was perceived as a weakness. So I think awareness around that to be able to put your hand up and say, "I'm not feeling 100% here," that's the first step. That's the first step. We need that awareness out. The officers need to be aware that nobody can help them if they aren't going to make people aware that they need help. So I think that's the big thing. And then the support around the mental health support within policing needs massively funded. It is massively underfunded at the minute. So funding, support, and awareness, they're the three key components as I see it.
Okay. In your experience, what practical steps can police services take to better support officers? No. We just did that question. Given the intense experiences officers can face in the police service, what personally motivated you to advocate openly about mental health and PTSD?
Well, I suppose for me, I joined the police to help people. At 20 years of age, I went into the PSNI to make a difference and to help people. Throughout my time within policing, I wanted to help people. I've now left the police. I still want to help people. So the reason I'm doing this is to raise that awareness, is to make the police service a better service for the younger officers who are coming in. And again, I'd like to say I love my time within policing, and it's a job that has been very good to me. And anything I can do to make that job better, then that's why I'm doing this. That is my why. That's one of my whys. Why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Okay. Looking back, was there a moment in your policing career when your personal ethics were profoundly tested? And how did you navigate that challenge? Look at the grin on your face.
That's
Was there more? Was there more than one moment?
personal ethics. I think that's a grey area. Have I been involved in things? Have I done things which probably sit outside what I would see as ethical? Maybe. Was I doing that particular thing at that particular time for the greater good? Yes, and that's one thing I can say, that anything I did from a place of trying to do the better good and trying to make a difference and trying to help people ultimately. I think I answered that.
Yeah, it's like a politician's answer.
Yeah.
uh, what critical lessons do you believe modern law enforcement globally could learn from Northern Ireland's experience with conflict resolution? What a great question.
Very good question. I suppose every police force has its idiosyncrasies, has its nuances. Northern Ireland is has those in abundance. We have obviously the political climate, ebbs and flows, the sectarian divide, again, at certain times of the year, marching season, the summertime, Easter's another contentious period. Have the PSNI sort of learned and evolved with time? Absolutely, they have, and I think that many police forces have had to do the same. Sorry, police services as they're now called, but um, I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, and that's that interoperability and that sharing of knowledge um, throughout the UK, which I've had first hand experience of, is invaluable. Yeah, I think that's really all I
Mm-hmm.
can. There's so many things that Northern Ireland, like the public order side of things. There's no police service has dealt with more public disorder than Northern Ireland. So I think that mainland UK, it's anywhere globally can learn massively from that, and that's just one element of it.
Reflecting on your service during Northern Ireland's most challenging years, how did policing amidst political tension shape your perspective on justice?
Again,
These last five questions have come from a guy called David, by the way, who's throwing these are good
it's
questions.
not making this easy.
There are a lot of questions about testing, and they're testing you. Yeah.
Not really. Could you just repeat that? Just I want to answer this.
Reflecting on your personal service during Northern Ireland's most challenging years, how did policing amidst political tension shape your perspective on justice?
Well, there has to be appropriate justice, appropriate deterrence, deterrence for people to stop them from committing crimes. You know, I think Northern Ireland is such a complex scenario. We now have ex-combatants on both sides of the divide are now in government. Essentially terrorists are now running the country. Um, and whether you like that or not, that's where we are now. And I think we all need to embrace that as best we can and move forward together. So, how? Yeah, it's such a complex one. I
Yeah.
don't think I fully answered that, but yeah.
What did you say then? We've effectively got terrorists running the country.
Well, we've ex members of the
Yeah, I love it.
professional
It's the
IRA.
full sentence. We've effectively got terrorists running the country, and we need to embrace that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
said
yeah. Well, I suppose
Do we?
Yeah. Well,
I know what you
what's
mean.
the
It's just
alternative?
yeah,
We go back to bloodshed on the streets
yeah.
on a daily basis. When I say ex-terrorists, wouldn't consider themselves. They would consider themselves as freedom fighters. I personally don't, but they would consider themselves as freedom fighters at that time on both sides of the divide. Um, they're now in a position of government, and they have their uh, they have their position. There's another side of the fence, and then the rest of society just seems to be dragged along, for the ride. Essentially, we need to. uh, I suppose we need to look. We need to look on both sides. Nobody's 100% right. Nobody's 100% wrong. But if Northern Ireland's to move forward together, well, we're all in this bus together. We're going to have to sort of make the most of it.
Mhm. Uh, do the CTSFOs match UKSF in regards to physical and mental toughness and marksmanship, etc.?
I don't. So, are you talking about military SF as opposed
Yeah.
to? Well, they're two different. First and foremost, a CTSFO is a police officer. So, first and foremost, that is their role. Military SF have a much wider cadre of skills, and environments to be working in. A CTSFO is primarily working within that environment. How do they match up? You know, days. On what day? What
Listen,
man?
my UKSF listeners right now
Yeah.
are screaming, going, "We're so much better." Yeah. They're not comparable, is what you're trying to say.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
comparing, onions and spanners here.
Yeah,
They're two different. Do you know what I mean? They're not comparable. So you're comparing a police officer to a UKSF. It's two
yeah.
different roles.
So that was a question from Coke, as is the next question. What do you think of the person who shot you?
Do you know what I love? Just before we do any further, every time there's a tough question, you have a little smirk as you're reading it. so
Do I?
so I know there's something coming. What do I think of the person that shot me? It is what it is. They shot me. They're a scumbag. Ultimately, they're scumbags involved in terrorism, criminality. I would call it, but as they would call it, freedom fighting, but it is criminality ultimately. I am aware of who was involved in my shooting, and we'll probably talk about that more. What do I think? They nearly stopped me from seeing my children grow up. They're scumbags, and there's no love lost. But do I think about them every day? No, I don't. There might as well be a piece of shit in my shoe, to be honest, because they don't affect me now. I don't think about them.
Good, good. Um, did you experience negativity from people you knew due to joining the police?
No. Again, that's a very complex question within
Is
Northern
it?
Ireland. It is,
It's
yeah.
binary to me.
No, well, I suppose if you look at it with the policing within the UK, it would be binary, but in Northern Ireland, it's a very complex question. So, around my friend, where I grew up was a very mixed area, very quiet seaside environment. My mother was Catholic, dad Protestant. I grew up
Oh,
in a
really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I grew up in a mixed household. Religion was not an issue in our house. I had a lot of Catholic friends, a lot of Protestant friends. So when I joined the police, I probably didn't understand the complexities of it myself. So when I joined the police, there was no negativity around it. But as time went on and people I met, sort of in the latter stage of my career, even in my younger days, if they found out I was a police officer, there would have been a bit of disdain or a bit of negativity around it, but never really that. Nothing overly aggressive, but there was always a bit of disdain around it.
Okay. Last one before we take a break. What is the worst case of police corruption you ever saw?
None. I genuinely didn't see the corruption. No, like there was no. This is all very subjective. What some people would say.
Again, to some people, it's not. It's completely binary.
Well, I suppose what do you calling corruption?
I would describe police corruption as making decisions or behaving in a way that is not in the interests of, like, the objectives of the police, protect and serve the public, right? But instead, it's in a way to uh, advance personal benefit.
In that case, I never seen that once, and genuinely, I've never seen anything even close to that. If you were talking about we see news footage of police officers being overly aggressive or using force that maybe
I, don't
wasn't
exactly,
warranted.
I wouldn't call that as corruption.
So yeah, so then in that case, no, I've never seen anything like that. Have I heard stories? I've heard stories, and it's in the press. Just yesterday, it's in the press about police officers taking advantage of their position for sexual gain. I've never seen any of that. Genuinely, never seen any of that. Of
That will exist for eternity when there are people in positions of power, not just in the
course.
police, unfortunately. But hopefully it's minimized. So, okay, end of the icebreaker. We're going to take a break now. There are a bunch more questions which we'll cover at the end of the full podcast. If you are right for live people who are listening to the live link now, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes. And if you're listening on your podcast app, keep listening. This is going to roll straight into the full podcast with Chris, where we're going to cover all of his experiences in depth, getting shot, 2022. I'm really interested to hear your insights into the relationship between terrorist organizations and policing in the community after a recent book I read by Mariah Cahill.
Was that in?
Rough Beast it's called.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna get into all this. It's gonna be a good conversation. Looking forward to it. Okay, back
Okay.
in 5.